Hello, and welcome back to Friday Vinyl Club, where every day feels like a Friday and every album tells a story. I'm Jamie, and each episode I invite a guest to bring along a special record, an album that didn't just play in their life, but travelled through it. This isn't about chart positions or critical reviews, it's about personal soundtracks, the records we inherit, discover, or claim for ourselves, and sometimes even pass on. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Laura Endler. Laura is Ollie's great friend based in Vancouver, Canada, and the person behind Instagram's at Endler's Reading, a space rooted in reflection, feeling, and storytelling where books are treated with real care. For today's Friday Vinyl Club, Laura has brought along 21st Century Blues by RAYE, a raw, fearless, deeply personal record that explores heartbreak, industry pressure, womanhood, survival, and reclaiming power, all told with a brutal honesty and a soul level songwriting. But before we dive into the album and Laura's connection with it, let's rewind a little. Laura, welcome to the Friday Vinyl Club. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. It's the start of spring, so I'm excited and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Great. I've been really looking forward to chatting. We started spring over in Vancouver. Is it cold still over there, or has it started to warm up a little?
I don't think the city's quite made up its mind, to be honest. We've had some warmer weather and then it'll start raining randomly. But today it's looking bright and I think our forecast is looking good. So maybe a hike later today.
Yeah, well, in the UK, I can tell you, it feels like we're still in the middle of winter. The spring sort of popped its head up, but
Mhm.
certainly popped his head back down. And this week has been icy cold. So yeah, I think you're probably still in the better place than the two of us. So Laura, on Instagram, you run Endler's Reading. So it's a book Instagram account, a space rooted in your lived experience. And I think you've actually brought an album today that kind of reflects that. Tell us a little bit about your Instagram account. Was that something you just thought you'd try and see where it went?
It started and it still really is just for myself and kind of to track my reading habits and my reading different books I'm reading. And it started mostly when I finished university and I had a lot of time in between starting my new job. And I just found myself not wanting to scroll, not wanting to be online. So I started reading more actively and I missed it. I studied sociology, so I was always reading different articles and different papers. So I used to read predominantly thrillers, and then I thought, I need to venture out a little bit. So then I started reading more literary fiction and then romance, and then recently more fantasy. So that's how it started. And I just wanted to document my reading journey as I was spending more time investing in books. And then I just was consuming a lot of content on books. I thought, I'll give this a go. I'll try it. So that's how it started. And then yeah, it's just been more of a digital bookshelf, and then connecting with different readers has been really enjoyable.
Yeah, it seems to be quite interactive. Do you get many sort of comments and feedback around some of the books you've read and what other people think about them?
Honestly, predominantly with my friends is a great way to start conversation because maybe other times it wouldn't have come up. But also I've had a few authors comment on my pages and that's always fun. And I go to some of the writers festivals in Vancouver and along the Sunshine Coast, and engaging that way live is really interesting.
Fantastic. You are a kindred soul with Ollie's mum, Emma. She's the bookworm, crime thrillers, crime novels, serial killers, all of that fun, upbeat, happy stuff. That's where Emma's heart lies. Um, but yeah, there's a big crossover between obviously books and music and that kind of storytelling piece. And music is where my heart lies. Hopefully, as we go through this conversation, we'll see how there's a little bit of crossover there between what you're doing with the books, but also the music you're listening to. But we always like
Mhm.
to start right at the beginning and think about early music memories. What was music like in the house as you were growing up? What were your parents listening to?
Mhm. Well, it's actually funny because my dad doesn't listen to music. He's the only one in the family. My sister, my mum, and I, we're always listening to music, but my dad just never really did. So he always says his favorite song is "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay," but I think that's just because that's the first song that pops into his head. But my my mom is the music fiend. She's always listening to something new, and it's definitely been a point of connection. She likes, she likes pretty much everything. I think she's a big Oasis fan, and then she likes Simply Red, so that's kind of what we were listening to early on. But it's funny you mentioned about the connection with storytelling and music and books, because that's kind of what I was thinking of talking about, because we always listening to Disney, and I feel like that's where my love for music and appreciation for music came in very early on, I will say. And I think that's where the kind of understanding music as a method to like tell your stories, even in the simplistic way of Disney, I think that's definitely what first sparked my interest and my love and following a character's journey, or just the amount of like the addition to what music can bring to a script as well. And even if it's in the background, the like the type of emotions you can feel just from instruments. And then that definitely inspired me to want to learn how to play instruments. And yeah, I think that love was planted early on, and my parents always encouraged that as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Disney's a great entry point into that, and there are so many great Disney films with unbelievable soundtracks. But it flows into any movie, doesn't it? If we think about it, it's like pretty much every movie we go see is soundtracked in some way, shape, or form, and it enhances the story. Are there any particular Disney films that you remember growing up that you were attached to?
Yeah, I think for me, it was Aladdin. I loved Aladdin. I think, again, like the suspense when he's running through the market, that what music contributes to that is incredible. And I think, yeah, Aladdin was definitely a favorite. And then I love Snow White as well.
Of
I think they
course,
were
yeah.
probably my top two, but yeah, very different soundtracks to both of them.
Yeah, Snow White, Cinderella, I think Emma collected all of the Disney films and sat Ollie down and made him watch them all as he was a kid. So
Mhm.
Ollie's grown up with a great fondness for the sort of Disney films as well. So your mum was listening to Oasis, Simply Red. What is that on CD? Is that car journeys when you were together, or is that just generally in the house?
I think a little bit of both. I think we had a stereo system, so probably mostly CDs, and then that CD would just whatever was the CD of the week would follow us throughout our daily journey. So maybe starting in the car and ending in the living room. And we're big dancers as well. My sister and I have always danced spiritedly. So I think music has always been playing some form. And then we're repeat freaks as well. So once we have a song that we love, it's on and on and on and on until, we've listened one too many times, and then we'll probably circle back to it in a few years. But yeah, I think it just follows us. I think it's always with us in the car, at home. Yeah.
Do you share things with your sister? Do you share musical tastes, or are you quite individual? I've got two older brothers and two younger sisters, and my music journey has been quite independent of that. Even listening through my older brother's bedroom walls, they were quite protective of their music, but I used to hear it, and I never really had that relationship with my sisters when it came to music. What's your sister relationship like?
That's a good question. I think early on it was the same, but as you become more independent and you have more resources to find your own and kind of discover what your own taste is, I think it probably diverted when we were teenagers. And I think I started playing in bands, so I was listening to a lot more classical music. And then again, a drastic shift. Started listening to more Indian alternative, which Eleanor was never really interested in as much. I think now she'll listen to some of it, but growing up, like between 13 and probably 18, our taste was different. And then Eleanor started learning Spanish, so she listened to a lot more reggaeton. But I think we can both appreciate each other's music, and then after a while, we kind of take the aux. We take the we take the lead, and maybe the DJ changes a little bit. But I think there's definitely a crossover. I think when you're growing up in the same house and you have the same, not just in music, but same upbringing, there's definitely a crossover of interest. But then
Mm,
maybe it'll divert slightly. And I think I've always been more of a fan, so I think I will get more invested in the artists themselves and follow their journey, whereas Eleanor is more spur of the moment and her feelings, and how maybe that will reflect her music choice more.
mm. Do you remember when you started coming out of maybe what your mum was listening to and started finding your own path? Sort of what was the type of music that you were first really into as you maybe in your teenage years or at school?
Mhm. I think it doesn't reflect my current taste, but I think One Direction was a pivotal moment in my listening journey and also just my music journey because I think that was the first time I was a true fan. And I think seeing an artist or a group of artists so young and their journey on the X Factor and becoming invested in them as people and really wanting to contribute to their success, I think that was the first time I really had an artist that the reason I was listening to it was because I really wanted to listen to them. And then that definitely shaped my early listening years. But I think after that, it was through probably my friends and just using it as a form of bonding with people. And playing in band honestly shaped my music taste a lot, and that's one of the reasons I love Ray's music is because, like, her musicianship and her ab ability not just as a singer, but a performer as well. I can really appreciate the effort that goes into becoming someone like that.
Ollie now is a phenomenal piano player,
Yes.
and he started picking up the guitar as well now and again. What were you playing? What were you picking up as you were growing up?
So I started with piano, and then that was when I was about 9 until maybe 13. And that kind of laid the foundation for teaching me how to read music and how to sight read. And then I switched over to the clarinet. We had somebody come visit our school and they played the Pirate of the Caribbean's soundtrack. And I thought that was really awesome. So I said, I've got to do that. So that's why I started. And then the clarinet laid the foundation for wind instruments. So then I started playing the alto saxophone and then the tenor saxophone. So my piano skills are a little they definitely dwindled, but I still play the tenor saxophone now.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's one of my all-time regrets that I never learned to play a musical instrument. Ollie
Uh-huh.
says that it's never too late, and I should. We've got a piano in the house, and I should sit down and try and learn it. But my brain says one thing, and my fingers do another,
Mhm.
and I'm very, very impatient. So the fact that I can't just sit and play like he does when he's playing me Olivia Dean, Tom Odell, or some crowded house, I get incredibly frustrated because I'd like to just sit and play perfectly. But yeah, that's never going to be the case. Would One Direction have been the first album that you bought, maybe on CD or even digitally?
Ooh, I believe it was Up All Night, I think that's what it was called, and I remember going to HMV with my mum, and again, my mum and my dad, they've always really supported our interests and really tried to nourish them, so I remember going first thing, and I was so excited, and we were first in the line in Chester picking up the CD, so yes, still young enough to have CDs, but yeah, so that was definitely the first one I bought. I think maybe there might have been a Hannah Montana records somewhere in there, but One Direction was definitely solely because I wanted to listen to them, and
Mhm.
I saw them twice as well, and of course, I thought all of them their waves were directed to me, but I think that was the first time an artist I just fell in love with an artist and just really felt connected to them, and I think also because a lot of girls my age were also interested in, so it was a bonding topic, and when I moved
Mm.
over to Canada when I was 9, the first time. I think it was a way to make friends and, once the excitement of my English accent kind of worn off, it was One Direction. So it was a way to bond with girls my age as well, which I think made me love them more because it was a shared interest internationally. So which music often
Yeah.
is.
And I think music nowadays is quite fluid, isn't it? You can share it in many different ways. Do you share with your friends? Do your friends come to you and say, "Hey, have you heard this? What do you think?"
Definitely. So my friends and I, we go to Wednesday night vinyl club, the first Wednesday of every month in a pub in the not in the UK, in Canada. And that's kind of our way of kind of having a debrief for the month, start off fresh, and then we all bring a vinyl each, and then the DJ plays it throughout the night. So that's kind of our way of sharing, and it's become a really great connection point for all us. And I think we all have different music tastes, but there's always, song of the week in our group chat. And even with Ollie and I, like sometimes we share music and it's a great way to keep in touch.
Well, that's brought me on to a lovely point, actually, because one of the things we've noticed in our house is you get to a certain point and music stops traveling down generations and it starts coming back the other way.
Mm.
And, over time, obviously, I say brainwashed Ollie, but I've provided him with a good musical background. But he now sends us artists that we would never have found ourselves. And to be honest, ahead of this call, you've been part of that as well because you've introduced me really to RAYE and the music I've been listening to this week. Do you have that relationship with your parents? Are you sending things back to your mum and saying, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Do you sit down together and listen to music, or is it still more of an individual piece?
It's definitely a collaborative venture. And I think my mum and I, we used to always drive to school together, and that was our way of sharing music. And then as we've got older, I found that we create playlists. So typically it's me creating the playlist, but my mum will give me a mini review of, what songs to take out and what songs to keep in. But I think also social media. Sometimes my mum will just be humming along in the kitchen, and I think, how do you know that song? And it was because it was part of a reel that she'd watched. I thought, it kind of spooks me sometimes. But yeah, I think my mum and I and my sister, like all three of us, we really connect with sharing music. And like you say, it flows in both directions now rather than just learning from my mum. But yeah, definitely, I agree with that.
Yeah, some of the best music I've discovered is through Ollie, and we tie that into obviously live gigs as well. We go up and down the country seeing different artists that he's found,
Mm.
absolutely wonderful artists, and I would never have found any of these had Ollie not passed them back to me. So yeah, that's a really nice thing to hear that it's happening in your house as well. Do you remember your first actual vinyl record?
Ooh, that's a good question. I started collecting when I was 16, I think, and it might have been one of the Arctic Monkeys vinyls. I was a big Arctic Monkeys fan around that time. So it probably was AM, so the one with the squiggly line, the black album with the white sound lines, but I think that would probably be one of them. To be honest, I think at that point I just wanted to have a collection. So whatever was cheapest and maybe I'd heard of one song or two, I think that kind of directed which albums I was selecting. But now I'm definitely more choosy, and I feel like what guides my selection is more what can I listen to when I'm cooking, because that seems to be, or dinner parties, that seems to be when I'm listening to my vinyls the most, because I just want to be hands free. I don't want to have to be on my phone at any point and just kind of have it in the background or the foreground. So yeah, I think I'm more choosy now, and the budget's increased slightly.
Which the budget needs to increase because vinyl records are so expensive now.
Mhm.
They're not cheap, are they? The new Ray album I saw was nearly £35 UK.
I'm actually going to see Ray's concert next week, so I think I'm going to buy my record there. But I did call
Ah,
about the record stores here, but it's not, I think they shipped a little late. So I'm
right.
still waiting on them.
Well, that ties us nicely into live gigs. And because there comes a point in time where we get out of the house. Um, do you remember the first gig you went to?
Ooh, it probably was a One Direction gig. I think that was the first time I went. Yeah, probably that was the first non-community. I went to a lot of live community, like lots of live music within the community, or maybe I was playing in it. So I think I've always been around live music, and I went to a theatre school. But I think where I'm actually paying and it's a larger artist was in Manchester. I went to see One Direction just after they finished the X Factor, and that was amazing. I think because they were still a smaller band. So that was really good. And then I think in 2018, I started attending more live gigs. And I think having the artists I love be from the UK, but watching them in Vancouver, it was amazing because a lot of them weren't as well known. So the venues were a lot smaller and the tickets were a lot cheaper. So I
Yeah.
remember I saw Dave, who was probably selling out arenas around that time in the UK. He was just at a nightclub here. So it was such a small venue. I
Wow.
think the ticket was maybe like $20. And the fans that were there obviously knew his music and loved him. So it was a great environment and great atmosphere. But I just really appreciated that. And the same, I used to be a big Catfish and the Bottlemen. So also, well, they're actually a Welsh band, but big in the UK. And again, a small venue here, but they would have sold out a lot larger. space in the UK. So I think having that advantage definitely was appreciated.
Yeah, so I've heard of both of those. I don't know them intimately, but I do recognize the name and I do recognize the music. Um, you actually submitted Milky Chance into our Instagram Friday Vinyl Club, and you said some really nice words around being brave, going to a gig on your own. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that happened and what was going on at that time?
Definitely. So I think when you move away for school, whether that's to a different city or a different country, like it was in my case, I know I'm from the UK, but I hadn't lived there by myself or lived there for a couple of years. So to me, it was still still pretty daunting. I think you get used to not waiting for people to or not waiting to have friends or family to go with you to certain events, and for me, Milky Chance was the first concert I'd been to by myself, and I just thought I'd wanted to see them since I was probably 13, 14, but I'd always been too young for the venue. And I just thought, when am I next gonna have this opportunity? And just why wouldn't I go? Why wouldn't it be fun and why wouldn't I feel safe? And it was on the campus, so it kind of eased that safety concern. But I found I missed a lot of opportunities just because I was maybe scared to be alone or a little intimidated to go to certain places by myself. But it was amazing. And I just think it almost made it more special because I was able to fully just enjoy the music and the performance. And it just reminded me of so many times where I was by myself listening to an artist. And I think that kind of intimate, not relationship, but that feeling of just really connecting one on one and not having any external factors be part of that enjoyment was just a really great experience. And I would definitely recommend people, whether it's concerts or different events, just to go and just try it. And you can always come home. So, if you're not having fun, you're not having a good time, you can always leave. But I think just putting yourself in situations, within reason, that kind of make you a little nervous or, you're not sure how it's going to go, I think almost make it 10 times better afterwards because you're so happy that you did take that chance.
Yeah, and that came across in your Instagram post. It felt like you felt empowered, and you must have got a real shot of confidence of the fact that you took that plunge and you did it. And there must be thousands of people who want to go see a gig but have got nobody to go with, so they don't take that chance, and they do end up not going and missing out, which is quite sad, really. Do you feel that it sort of altered how you look at music concerts? Do you second guess yourself now, or do you think, no, if I see something and I've nobody to go with, I'm still going to go because I know that I'm going to enjoy myself?
I think definitely the latter. I think I'm no longer scared to go to concerts by myself. And I think especially if they're on a campus or, it's a smaller venue, then it's definitely less daunting. And it's just everyone's going there or pretty much everyone's going there for the purpose of just enjoying the music. And you all have this shared interest and shared passion. So you probably meet somebody to talk to and somebody, you have a common topic to start the conversation
Yeah.
with. So I think everyone's just going there to have fun and to kind of relax from their lives and just have that escape from whatever they're going through or whatever they're experiencing. So I think that's definitely a good starting point, and just maybe go to a small local event or a smaller venue and then work your way up if you're nervous. But in general, I think everybody just is there to listen to the music and to appreciate the art. So I think it's definitely a safe environment to try.
So, talking of concerts, you're going to see Ray next week, did you say? Where are you seeing Ray?
I'm seeing her at the UBC, I believe it's a Thunderbird stadium. So it's our university stadium in Vancouver. And I believe it's the third largest venue we have in the city. So I'm going with my sister Eleanor, and we'll definitely be dressing up and having a great time on Thursday, I believe.
Well, that brings us nicely into the album that you've chosen today. So that is Ray's 21st Century Blues. It's pretty uncompromising, an album that confronts trauma, exploitation, addiction, self worth, and survival. And there is nothing soft around the edges on this one. For full transparency, I obviously knew of Ray. I've heard of her name. She talks very highly of Olivia Dean, who, as you know, we love as a family. But this is the first time this week that I've sat and listened to the album from front to back, and it's incredibly personal. So I'm really fascinating to hear why this is a record you've brought into Friday Vinyl Club. So maybe we start right at the beginning. Where did you first hear of Ray?
So I first heard of Ray, actually circling back to what we were speaking about earlier, is through my mum. So Ray used to create a lot of more, I would say, dance music or remixes. And my mum, when she was living in the UK and I was living with my dad and my sister here because she was still in university, she would send me over music and then we would bond that way as well. And that was a point of connection. So she sent me over Ray's You Don't Know Me, which, as I say, is more of a dance hit, and I would always my sister and I would always dance to the music, and I would send videos back to my mum, and it was just a way to keep in touch and to, yeah, keep connected. So that was the first time I heard her music, and you'll notice in her early singles, a lot of them are very similar, like, definitely more for the radio, and I believe that's because she was tied to a label at the time, and they had a lot of control over what she was creating, and, one song was a hit, so then that formula kind of became what she was tied to. So yeah, she was kind of pigeonholed in the type of into the type of artist that they wanted her to be, and very limited. So I think that's where you'll notice the big drastic change from her singles and her first few songs to then this album. And that's one of the reasons I love this record, because you can tell that she's independent. You can tell not just from her label, but as a person, you can just tell the passion and the freedom that has come from this change within her career and within her life. So I think that's a major reason for my admiration for this album.
Where were you when you first heard this album?
I don't have a moment where I first heard it. I feel like I probably stumbled across it because, as I say, I did like her early music, but I wasn't following her closely as an artist until after this album. So I feel like I stumbled across it, and just her storytelling is just exquisite. Like the way she builds from one song to the next, and as you say, it's a body of art. Like it's the way an album, in my opinion, should be created. And I just, yeah, it's not that I can relate to the album necessarily. It's just her rawness and her vulnerability is really admirable.
Sometimes people say when they're listening to an album that it takes a few listens to actually understand what's going on. Um, is that what you found with this album, or was it a bit more immediate?
I think it was immediate in that I knew I was gonna love the the album. It was immediate in that respect, but I think to appreciate the details of the album, you've gotta listen to it. Same with her new album, especially. You've gotta listen to it more than once, and it's not something that you can just hear over the radio, or maybe the odd song is like that, but I think I immediately loved and respected the album, but I think the appreciation came later, and just the amount of artistry within each song, whether that's musically or lyrically, because she's a great lyricist. I think that came later, probably.
This record feels really. I said earlier, it's not soft around the edges, is it? There's anger in there, there's grief, there's a bit of humor, exhaustion, but there's resilience. How
Mm.
do you feel emotionally when you play it and you listen to this? Is it something that you get something from? Because some of this is quite angry.
Yes, yeah. I think it depends on the song. As you say, some of it is quite angry, but I think it's also empowering the way she has chosen to express what she's been through. It's quite empowering to see a woman do that. So I think, and also, as I say, her knowing her history as an artist and a slither of maybe what she's personally been through, it's very real. I just feel it's not often we find artists, or at least I don't listen to artists, where it's not for others. I feel like this album was for herself, and it was for
Yeah.
her journey, whether that's emotionally or, finding what type of style of music she likes to create. I think that's extremely rare, and especially for someone of Ollie and I's generation. I think she's a little older, but not by much, and I think that's quite amazing. So I think that's the word, I'm amazed by
Yeah.
this album, and I think it's rare.
It is. It feels like a really open record that she's not holding back.
Mhm.
There's a lot of topics in there that aren't always easy to talk about as well.
Mm.
So yeah, that honesty, there's certainly vulnerability on this. She opens herself up in so many different ways. Does that resonate with you when you're listening?
I think how can it not? I think any human going through this experience, or even if you haven't had the same experiences exactly or even remotely, I think how can you not empathize with somebody who's sharing this side of themselves, which not only is so intimate and personal, but it's just, yeah, I think, as you say, it's extremely vulnerable. And I admire what she's doing. And just, you can see her journey throughout the album as well. It is maybe her lyrics are harsh or explicit at times, but I think there are pockets of hope, and it builds to her current album, and that explores that more. And I think I always enjoy listening to music where you can tell this was at a certain point in this artist's life, and it's not formulaic, it's just an expression of who they are at that time. And seeing them transition even from song to song or album to album as they grow up or as they create more music, I think that's quite beautiful and uh, great insight into the human experience, really.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a real push and pull in the songs, in the way she writes the lyrics. There's that kind of wanting to escape from where she is, but at the same time, she's been brave enough to stand up and face things as well. You know, there's partying versus consequences. There's numbing up the feelings with alcohol, and then obviously reality kind of catching up. Um, do you hear that as her trying to escape, or do you think this is what she was trying to do here, was be more confrontational and face up to things?
I think it's a mixture, to be honest. I think it's by writing it down and releasing it, even if she wasn't to release it, even just writing her emotions down is a form of facing the feelings, even if she's not really pinpointed what it is she wants to gain out of, recording it. But I think, yeah, I think it's a combination of both. You can confront something while still not fully acknowledging or recognizing the impact or the truth and the consequences, as you say, of what's going on. So I think it's a combination. I don't think it's one or the other. And I think as she's expressing it, maybe it leans to more facing facing the confrontation. But yeah, I think it's a combination.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair observation. One thing that I like is lyrics.
Mm.
Ollie will tell you that I love listening to lyrics. This album, I've listened to it a few times this week, and there's some really heavy lyrics, but they're dressed up in melodies and music that, if you don't really listen to what's going on, you could get lost thinking that these are just throwaway pop songs, up tempo beats, but they're not, are they? They're not at all. There's a huge contrast there between the vibe of the music and the message in the lyrics. Obviously, you're a big book reader. Are you drawn towards lyrics, and do you see that contrast in this particular album?
I do. That's a great question. Yes, I do. I think I'm similar to you. I definitely focus on the lyrics more than the music initially, I think. And I also believe that's very intentional. You put it beautifully. I think she has these lyrics that are very complex and very easy to miss if you're not listening. And I think that's exactly what she wants to convey, that a lot of the times what people say is missed, or maybe what isn't said is often missed or glazed over with something that's more glamorous. And that's not just to the extremes of what she's talking about, but just day to day. I think a lot of the times we don't know what people are going through, or we don't understand people fully because a lot of the times they're just wanting to present a certain front. So I think it's very intentional, her music style and the way she produces her music. And I think that's one of the reasons why she's such a great artist, because everything is thought through and everything is intentional.
Okay, let's do a couple of deep dives on some tracks. I've picked out three, but obviously feel free to throw in your favorites as well. But the first one I'm going to start off with is Escapism. It feels like it's, again, that push and pull, chaos versus control, nights out, losing yourself. consequences. It feels very messy, but it's really real. Everything feels slightly out of control. What did you think the first time you heard it?
I think just that first beat, like the it feels like a punch, I feel like almost, and it's
Yeah,
not, and again, it pairs well with the lyrics, and I think that, the rhythm, that first rhythm that just hits you and it feels almost physical, I think that sums up the whole song almost. It just feels like one punch after the next, and I think to capture an action within a melody and then also the lyrics to go on top of that is quite astonishing. It's quite impactful as well. And there's been a lot of remixes of that song. That's kind of the one that got famous, I think, off the album. And I think
okay.
just because it is so it just knocks you off your seat right away with the tempo and yeah, it's great. But I think it's just impactful, that song.
Yeah, it feels like as she's going through it, things escalate really
Mhm.
quickly, emotionally, through the story that she's telling. Um, do you think people connected to it, as you say, it was one of the biggest hits? Is this people connecting to it because it feels so real, or because of the melody and the tempo of the song itself?
I think it's a bit of both, and it depends on what you listen to because just musically, it's such a great song if you take out the lyrics, just it captivates you. And then in regards to the lyrics, I think it's the storytelling again, it always comes back to that. It's she's telling you a story from start to finish and then bringing you into that headspace that is so difficult as a listener to be in, but even to experience as well. So it's just, I think you're following her through that night. And that's one of her greatest talents, I think, is her ability to bring the listener in to her in one experience or to one moment in time. And it's almost, she lays it out so beautifully that it's hard not to get lost in what she's saying and the song. So I think it's just a captivating song and the journey as well is tremendous.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of describing it. I found that to be one of the more instantly listenable track on the album. The next track that I jumped out at me was completely the opposite. More vulnerable, stripped back, and certainly more of an intimate delivery, and that was Ice Cream Man. It feels completely different. It's really much quieter, but it really stood out powerfully because of that. Not because it was chaotic and an upbeat tempo, but the fact that it was um, quieter in the shadows. I often like artists, and I've said this about Olivia Dean, some of her most powerful tracks are not the big hits, but they're the more stripped back, quieter songs that she has. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think again it's the vulnerability. This song is a very it can be sad. It's a sad song. So it's, having that stripped back and that vulnerability vocally, not having the backing tracks that she sometimes do, which also bring a sense of vulnerability to for the impactfulness. But I think having this one stripped down and having just her voice or for the majority of it is just another way to enforce that sense of openness and exposure. I think that would be the word for this song. It's just she's exposed and it's freeing in a way I would imagine, but it leaves there's no support, It's just her vocals and yeah, I think that's what makes this one impactful is it's the as you say, it's the opposite to the other record.
Mm. Yeah, and she's nothing to hide behind with the arrangement of that. It really lends emotional weight to the way she delivers the lyrics as well. And it really, really stood out for me. That was a real gut puncher for me. Hard Out There is another one that I pulled out that I really enjoyed. This one was more about industry pressure, I think.
Mm.
Frustration, honesty, calling things out. If we go from um, the Ice Cream Man song, which was more emotional, this one feels more direct and confrontational. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that goes back to this one is more, as you say, it's towards the industry, and maybe, therefore, she's able to be stronger in her approach because maybe it feels yes, personal to her, but she's also angry for musicians. That's at least what I took away. So it almost feels sometimes you are braver or stronger when you're representing other people as well as yourself. At least that's my takeaway. I find that I'm able to stand up, or I'm able to at least present a stronger front when there's other people involved. And again, it leads into how she approaches the topic and how she approaches it musically as well.
I think that Ray's not the first, and she certainly won't be the last artist that faces that reality of what is going on in the industry. So I think there's a bigger thing out there. Do you notice that with the artists you listen to? Are you seeing more of them wanting to maybe become independent and break away from the mainstream industry?
I think it's a combination because a lot of the times the younger or maybe smaller artists that are tied to these labels don't have that power. And Ray was definitely a small artist initially, and I think maybe she falls into that category. So it is brave for her to speak up. But I think the ones that are able to do it publicly and maybe are able to get out of these deals are the ones that have already almost benefited from being in those types of relationships and those types of contracts. So I think a lot of the times the younger artists that are maybe so restricted, yes, it's easy to say that they're maybe producing songs for the radio or producing songs that are just what's going to get them famous and maybe not expressing exactly the artist they want to be. And I think those are the sad cases because they probably are the ones without the platform and the resources to do much about it. But I also think on a positive note, a lot of younger artists or new artists possibly, because of social media now, anybody can be an artist. So I think that's a little light at the end of the tunnel, maybe, that the way artists are created and scouted now is different. So maybe there's more control and autonomy as well within becoming a musician nowadays, which is great.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. What would you class as being your favorite songs on here? I've mentioned three, but which ones would you gravitate towards?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I think escapism is definitely up there, which we've discussed. And I think the other two would be Worth It, I think, as a song that is a little more upbeat. So maybe a lighter entry point for people who aren't familiar with Ray. Maybe that would be a great starting point. It's a little more um, it's an easier listen lyrically, and it's a fun upbeat track. And then I would say Oscar winning Tears as well. I think that one, especially if you watch some of her live performances of that song, I think that is just a perfect demonstration of the range, both in her lyrics, in her music, and just her vocal ability. I think that song perfectly demonstrates the type of artist Ray is. So I would say they would be my top three.
So this album's traveled with you now for what, 3 years? Are there any tracks that mean more to you now that you've had repeated listening with them, or any tracks now that you kind of skip over?
I don't think I would say it's a no skip album. I think it's very mood dependent. Sometimes you don't want to be listening to these heavier songs, and other times you really need to listen to those songs. So I think it's more mood dependent. And that is how I listen to music generally. So I think it would be not an album I listen to cover anymore. I've transitioned out of that, but I definitely think her new album is going to replace that spot for me. So I'm definitely not done with Ray, but I think as an album, it's more something I go back to. So I think, yeah, it's definitely mood dependent. Also, Worth It, I'm always listening to. So I think that one's a weekly song, but the rest of the album, as you say, it is very heavy and it is very vulnerable, and the topics aren't light. So it's not something you can play, or at least I can't play repeatedly.
As you say, the new album that just dropped yesterday is, I guess, a continuation of this journey. Then is that the flow? I saw that she'd themed it with the seasons, so there was autumn, winter, spring, and summer there. But I haven't deep dived into any of those tracks yet. Have you listened to it digitally yet? I know you're going to get the vinyl hopefully at your showing next week.
Yeah, so I've listened to half of the album. I really wanted to dedicate time. It only came out, I believe, yesterday or the day before. So I really want to dedicate time and listen to it cover to cover. So I got halfway, and the songs, it's not a casual listen. It's something that deserves dedicated time and to really understand the lyrics and to appreciate the artistry behind it. And I think the collaborations she's got on the album, she's got some of her family members and she's got Hans Zimmer. So there's, it's some,
Wow.
yeah. So not your typical collaborations on there, but I think it's definitely an album that deserves that time to fully appreciate. So I'm halfway through and so far I'm loving it. But yeah, it's funny that she's done it by seasons because that's how I also listen to music. I really do associate the seasons, whether through a playlist or just more generally speaking, with the way I listen to music and also the way I read. I read certain genres seasonally. So, but it's a great album so far.
It'll be interesting to see how the whole album stacks up compared to 21st Century Blues. And just going back to that, let's just think about the artwork, because the cover of it is quite striking, isn't it? We've got Ray stood on top of a pile of musical instruments, and she's stood right on top with a pair of red high heels that are too big for her feet, and a little hand just sort of peering out right up at the top of it. What was your reaction when you first saw the album artwork?
I think just like her music, it's so intentional. And I think the amount of herself she puts into everything she does is very clear and is appreciated. So I think for the artwork, originally I before looking into all the details, you just see those stack of instruments. And to me that could be seen as she's on top of the industry, or she's all the instruments and all the people that create Ray. I think she's a very collaborative artist and she gives recognition as well to the artists she works with and that help her become the artist that she wants to be. So I think that's the initial thought. And then with the shoes, it's these shoes that she's never gonna fill if she's just performing for others and just creating for others. And I think once you start creating for yourself, that's when you truly shine and that's when people will be able to see themselves in you and also relate to you and relate to what you're saying more, and that's when the true connections happen. So I think there's a lot of meaning in her artwork. Yeah. What did you think?
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right. Intentional is what first came to mind. There's a reason why she's depicted herself that way. For the shoes that look oversized for her, it was like feeling the pressure of expectations. I could see it that way, but I could also see it as an artist that's growing. So she's growing into herself, still not figuring it out, trying, different versions of herself. Um, she looks unbalanced. So she's trying to balance herself up there. And I think there's something beautifully kind of off center about the way that she's portraying herself there. It's like a balancing act of what she's trying to do or trying to portray. So it felt a little bit sort of theatrical. But then when you
Mm.
open up the gatefold and you go inside, there she is filling those shoes, and you've got men in suits lying all around her. So that to me was again an intentional signal of this is me, this is myself, I've made it, and she's basically taking no prisoners, is she? Do you think the album cover represents the music that's inside, or do you feel a bit different?
Never thought of that actually, but now that you've asked, I think it's got to. I think, as we've said so many times, she's a very intentional artist. So I can imagine that listening experience must relate to the artwork on the cover and throughout the album, like you've described. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
And I think the clever thing that Ray's done here is it's not until you actually open this up um, and see her more fully in control that you actually realize what you're going to get from the music. And now when I paired the three images to the music inside, you have a really defiant person who has taken some hard knocks. She's worked her way to where she is now, and through a lyric, she's articulating that. But my word, what a force of nature. And yeah, I'm so, so glad that you introduced me to this album.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that because I wouldn't have noticed that, I don't think, and I think relating to something visual because actually her new music video for one of her new songs, Click Click Clack Symphony, I think it adds so much more and it ties back to what we were saying about Disney. You know, something foundational for children and adults can still appreciate Disney now. But I think the relation between the physical and what you can see to what you can hear as well, it's always intertwined and really it makes it so much more impactful. So thank you for
Mm.
sharing that as well.
We always close the Friday Vinyl Club with a Friday spin, a recommendation. Now, given that you are so into your books as well as your music, I thought it'd be fun if I asked you if there was a book recommendation and a music recommendation. I don't know where you want to start, but what have you got for us?
Okay, so I'll start with the books, and I actually have 2 recommendations. So I've got one close that's set and an author close to you in Yorkshire, and then I've got one close to me. So, totally different genres and totally different time periods. So the one for Yorkshire, we've gotta do a Bronte. So I've gone for Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and this is a classic. So this one is about an orphan girl that, survives a harsher childhood, and then she becomes a governess to a Yorkshireman, and it's about her journey. And there's some can't tell you much, but it's a classic, so I'm sure everyone's heard of it. But there's some twists and turns, and it's definitely a great read, especially if you're not used to reading classics. I think that's a great entry point. And then the one that is set and an author local to me is The Tiger and the Cosmonaut. It's by Eddie Buldeltan and it's set in BC, which is British Columbia, Canada. And it's about the main character, Casper, whose dad goes missing. So Casper has to go back to one of our islands that we have here. And the journey of trying to find his dad kind of reminds him of his trauma that's tied to 20 years ago when his twin brother went missing. So it's a thriller, but it's also a literary fiction. So it's more of a contemporary read. And I believe this one will be great for those who like mystery, but maybe want to dabble more into something more contemporary. And yeah, so I think they are my 2 recommendations for you, book wise.
Fantastic. What about music wise? What have you got for us for a recommendation there?
Okay, so I know you've got a few Billie Eilish albums, I believe, in your Friday Vinyl Club. So it is a Billie record, but it's the song My Future by Billie Eilish. And that's my recommendation. I think that one transitioning similar to Ray, it's more about choosing yourself and putting yourself forward, not in a selfish way, but in a way that honors the future you want and creating that future. So that is my song recommendation.
Brilliant. I have to say, we're probably really, really, really late in the day to get onto the Billie Eilish train. So really appreciate that. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Laura. Laura, thank you so much for bringing 21st Century Brews and your story to Friday Vinyl Club. Did you enjoy that?
I sure did. Thank you. It's my pleasure to speak to you. Did you enjoy it?
I did. Thank you. I've learned so much through this conversation. It's always powerful hearing how music flows through people's lives. Um, to our listeners, you'll find some of the songs that we talked about today from 21st Century Blues on our companion Spotify playlist. And if you want to connect with us, please feel free. You can reach us at Instagram at JamieB1973, or you can email us at the Friday Vinyl Club at hotmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it, follow the show, or leave a rating. It really helps a small family podcast like ours grow. Until next time, keep your records spinning and your stories alive. Laura, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye bye.
No, wait, Laura, come back, come back. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
So, because of the timing of our first recording, we've got an opportunity just to quickly catch up and find out how you and your sister Eleanor enjoyed the RAYE concert last night. So, fill us in, tell us all about it.
Well, I think that concert was probably the best concert I've ever been to. We covered so many genres within the concert, and it started out very theatrical. and then there was even a rave involved. So Ray, the a Y lifted up and a V dropped down to create a rave. So it was a great concert, definitely.
Fantastic. And just remind me, where was it? It was, did you say it was in the third biggest stadium or arena in Vancouver?
Yeah, so it was at the Thunderbird Stadium, which is actually at UBC, which is the university here, and that's the third largest venue. And I believe Ree said it was the largest venue she's played and headlined in North America.
Wow. So a pretty iconic one for you to be at.
Definitely. And her sisters opened for her, and then she came out afterwards, and they joined her again as the last song.
So how did your day shape up? You said that you were going to get dressed up and really enjoy it. Did your mum drop you off, or do you get public transport to the place where she was playing?
I'm embarrassed to say, but we Ubered there, I'm going to be honest, because I just finished work and by the time we'd got ready and we did get dressed up, we had our dresses on and our heels. So we were thinking, this is part of the experience, the Uber ride as well. So we
Oh,
did Uber there and then we were there about an hour before Ray came on. So we saw both of her sisters, their full sets, and we got our merchandise. We each got a t-shirt and then we got the vinyl as well.
fantastic. And what was the set list like? Did she cover earlier stuff? Was any of that sort of dance stuff on there, or was it just really from 21st Century Blues and the new album?
So I was actually surprised because I thought maybe there'd be one or two from her previous album, the album we covered, but there was actually her earlier stuff in there too. So as I mentioned, there was a rave part of it, but it was all played by the live band. So it was really great. There was no pre-recordings. And she played You Don't Know Me, and she played some of her earlier radio hits, which was amazing. And then from 21st Century Blues, she played your favorite, Ice Cream Man, and that was quite an
Oh,
emotional performance. And I think that also showed the range in what this woman can do because started off very theatrical with some of her new record, and then obviously that one is a very emotional song. And that fed into, and she played that by the piano as well, and that was just her playing. And then I Know You're Hurting, which is from her new album. So she did a great job of transitioning from something quite heavy and personal to
mm,
something more hopeful.
fantastic. And how did the old tracks on 21st Century Blues come across live? Because that'll be the first time you've seen most of those songs live, right?
Yes, all of them. It was amazing. She sang Oscar-winning Tears. She sang, as I say, Ice Cream Man and Worth It, which I really enjoyed because it started with a saxophone solo. And then,
Ah,
I started piecing it together. I was saying to my sister, they're going to play Worth It. I know it. They're going to play Worth It. And then Ray joined in. So she also did an excellent job of highlighting each performer on the stage with her, each musician, which I
mhm.
knew she would. It's her way, but yes, that was amazing.
What did the new song sound like? The last time we chatted, you'd heard half the record. Had you
Mhm.
heard the rest before you managed to get in, or was the rest new to you?
No, I've done a full listen of the whole record probably 3 times now, and I still don't know all of the lyrics, but I knew enough to sing along, and it was amazing. I think for this album, I was really excited to see how she'd perform it because it's recorded with such a full band, so having a slightly smaller band on stage, I was wondering if it would have the same impact because a lot of the songs are very musically challenging, but it was brilliant. I think it sounded
Oh,
amazing, and her her performance also was it was almost like musical theater at the beginning, and as I say, it transitioned more then into a rave, then into something more personal, and then at the end with her sisters singing Joy, which is the third to last track from the album. It kind of she did a great job, as I say, with the flow.
yeah. I really enjoyed seeing your videos on Instagram over the last couple of hours. The staging looked incredible, and the lighting looked second to none. It looked incredible from your vantage point, seeing the whole stage, seeing how it all came together.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's a fair evaluation. I think it was theatrical at the start, and then we definitely explored all of the emotions. But this album is meant to be set through all the seasons as well, so I think that kind of correlates to what her plan was. You know, you feel different things in the seasons, and obviously nature changes as well, and so do we. So I think that was intentional.
And how were the crowd? Was everybody into it?
Everyone was into it, and it was quite a range of ages, and I think that's because she's covered so many genres. There's something in it for everybody. And I would say the crowd, it was funny. I was saying to my sister that her earlier work that was on the radio, more of her dance hits, nobody really knew those ones. I think definitely her fandom here is from her last album and the newest album. So that was interesting because Eleanor and I were singing so much. I was saying, you can tell most of these people are Canadian, you know. Because her earlier songs were always on the radio in the UK, but we definitely sang twice as loud for those ones.
And you say you got some merch and you picked up your vinyl copy of the new album?
Yes, so we each got a T-shirt, and then I got the vinyl as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming back and giving us an overview of your evening. Yeah, at some point I really want to see her live. You've filled me with enthusiasm of RAYE's music, and I'm looking forward to getting the new album myself now. So thank you for
Mm.
that.
Yes, of course, and she is the warm-up act for Bruno Mars as well for North America. So hopefully, I'm planning to go in October as well.
So you see it twice. You see it twice, double dose.
Yes, yes, which I didn't realize because Bruno Mars announced his tour a lot later than Ray, so I just got lucky with both of them.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you so much, Laura. Really, really appreciate that. And this time we'll say goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Ah.